It is 2:47 in the afternoon on Sunday, the 7th of August, 2016. The road is Brooks Station Road in Princeton, Massachusetts, a town of about 3,400 people in the wooded center of Worcester County. The road is 2 lanes. It has long stretches with no houses, no driveways, and no through traffic. On one of those stretches on that afternoon, a residential surveillance camera at the edge of a driveway captures, for approximately 5 seconds, a dark-colored sport utility vehicle moving slowly past in the direction of Mount Wachusett. The driver is a man. The angle of the camera does not show his face. The clip is brief enough that, at the time it is recorded, no one watching it would think it meant anything. 6 years later, that clip, augmented by additional sightings from drivers who used the same road that afternoon, will be the central exhibit in the prosecution of a man named Angelo Ortiz, who will be convicted in Worcester County Superior Court in October of 2022 for the murder and aggravated rape of a 27-year-old woman named Vanessa Marcotte. This is the story of that clip. What was on it? How it was found? How it was preserved through the cold years when the case appeared to be slipping? How it was matched against a single chance traffic stop 9 months later? And how a 5-second piece of digital footage recorded on a residential surveillance system in a town most Americans have never heard of became the artifact that closed one of the most aggressively investigated cold cases in modern Massachusetts state law enforcement history. This is the case of Vanessa Marcotte. She was 27 years old. She worked at Google in New York. She was visiting her mother for the weekend. She went for a run. She did not come home. Vanessa Tina Marcotte was born in 1989. She grew up in Leominster, Massachusetts, the same city where her mother, Christina Marcotte, still lived in 2016. Vanessa attended Boston University, where she graduated in 2011 with a degree in political science and international relations. She moved to New York after college. She worked her way into a position as an account manager at Google's New York office. Friends in Manhattan described her as the kind of person who had 3 running paths memorized for any neighborhood she lived in. She ran the West Side Highway in the morning. She ran Central Park on the weekends. She ran Brooklyn Bridge Park when she stayed with friends. Running was not a phase or a project for her. It was the way she organized the rest of her life. On Friday, the 5th of August, 2016, she took the train from New York to Worcester. Her mother picked her up. The two drove to Christina's home in Princeton, where the family had spent extended time over the years. The plan for the weekend was not complicated. Vanessa wanted to spend 2 nights with her mother. She wanted to run on the rural roads of Princeton on Saturday and Sunday. She wanted to take the train back to New York on Sunday evening. On Saturday she ran. On Sunday afternoon, around 1:30 in the afternoon, she laced her running shoes, told her mother she was going for a short loop on the country roads near the house, and left through the back door. She would not return. Brooks Station Road in 2016 was a partially monitored road by accident, not by design. Princeton was a residential rural community with a low crime rate, and most homes did not have cameras of any kind. The cameras that did exist were the kind that homeowners had installed for low-grade security against package theft, deer in the garden, or the rare uninvited visitor. They captured the section of driveway in front of the camera and a fragment of the road beyond. On the afternoon of the 7th of August, several of those cameras, in the half-mile stretch between the Marcotte residence and the trailhead at the base of Mount Wachusett, captured intermittent footage of vehicles passing through. Most of the footage showed empty road. Some of it showed the cars of neighbors. A small number of clips, totaling roughly 45 seconds in aggregate, showed a dark sport utility vehicle moving north toward the trailhead, and then, an hour later, moving south away from it. In addition to the residential surveillance, 2 drivers who used Brooks Station Road that afternoon had dashboard cameras in their personal vehicles. Both submitted footage to investigators in the days that followed. One of the dashcam clips, A clip of approximately 5 seconds captured the dark SUV from a closer angle than the residential cameras had managed. The clip showed the front quarter of the vehicle, the right side mirror, and the lower portion of the windshield. The driver inside the vehicle was visible only as a silhouette. This was the object. This was what investigators would, over the next 9 months, examine, enhance, distribute, and ultimately match. By approximately 7:30 in the evening on the 7th of August, Christina Marcotte called the Princeton Police Department. Her daughter had not returned from a run that should have been less than 90 minutes long. The afternoon had passed. The evening was setting in. Vanessa was not the kind of person who lost track of time. The Princeton Police, a small department, treated the call as a missing person report. They began driving the roads. They called the Massachusetts State Police. They called the State Environmental Police, who covered the Mount Wachusett area. By approximately 8:30 in the evening, a search team had organized at the trailhead. By approximately 10:30, a team had moved into the wooded area approximately a half-mile from the road. By approximately 11 in the evening on the 7th of August, the team found Vanessa. She was approximately 20 feet off the road, partially concealed in the undergrowth. She had been killed. The condition of the body indicated that an effort had been made to obscure forensic evidence. The cliffhanger that closes Part 1 is the same cliffhanger that hung over the Worcester County District Attorney's Office for the entire fall and winter and spring that followed. Investigators had a body. Investigators had time of death. Investigators had a theory of how she had been intercepted on the road. Investigators had the dashcam clip and the residential surveillance clips of a dark SUV. What investigators did not have was a license plate. The clips, in their original resolution, did not capture one. The 5-second dashcam clip, the most useful of all of them, showed the front of the vehicle but not the plate. The investigators had a vehicle profile, dark SUV, possibly mid-size, and they had a driver silhouette. They did not have an identification. For the next 8 months, the case would be worked aggressively with the FBI, the state police, the Worcester County District Attorney, and the small Princeton department all on the file. They would receive thousands of tips. They would interview hundreds of people. They would chase leads in 3 states. They would, in the public press conferences of the period, repeatedly ask the public to come forward with any information about a dark SUV in the Princeton area on the afternoon of the 7th. They would not get a license plate. The thing they would get, when it finally came, would be entirely accidental. By the end of August 2016, the Vanessa Marcotte case file had grown to the size of a banker's box. By the end of September, it had grown to 2 banker's boxes. By the end of October, it had grown beyond what could practically be carried into a meeting. The investigators had begun digital indexing. The 5-second dashcam clip, in its original form, had been distributed in print and broadcast media as a stilled frame, captioned with the request that anyone recognizing the SUV come forward. Thousands of tips had come in. None of them had produced an identification. The investigators, working with FBI Digital Forensics in Quantico, Virginia, sent the clip for enhancement. The result, returned in late November, refined the silhouette of the driver to a degree that allowed approximate height and approximate frame estimation. The driver appeared to be a man, between 5'8" and 5'11", of medium build, wearing a short-sleeved shirt that appeared to be light-colored. The clip did not, even after enhancement, produce a face. The clip also produced one additional detail that would later prove central. On the front passenger side of the SUV, at the lower right corner of the windshield, there was a sticker. The sticker was faded. The sticker was not commercial in origin. It appeared, after enhancement, to be a parking permit of some kind, with a small alphanumeric code that the enhancement could not fully resolve. The investigators flagged the parking permit as a potential identifier and continued canvassing. The first major event of 2017, in terms of the case file, was the public release of a partial composite sketch of the suspect. drawn by an FBI forensic artist working from the silhouette and witness descriptions of a man seen jogging in the area earlier that afternoon. The composite did not produce immediate results. The case did not break. The break, when it came, was a traffic stop in the city of Worcester, about 20 miles south of Princeton, on a Wednesday afternoon in late March of 2017. A Massachusetts state trooper, on routine patrol, observed a dark SUV operating with what appeared to be an expired inspection sticker. The trooper signaled the driver to pull over. The driver complied. The driver was a man named Angelo Colon Ortiz. He was 31 years old. He was Hispanic. He worked as a delivery driver for a courier service. He produced a license and registration. The vehicle was registered to him. The vehicle was a dark-colored Chrysler Town & Country, which is technically a minivan rather than a sport utility vehicle. But in the rough silhouette of the August 7th dashcam clip, the two had been confused for one another. The trooper, while checking the documentation, noticed something that, in the absence of the Vanessa Marcotte case, he might have ignored. On the front passenger side of the windshield, at the lower right corner, there was a faded parking permit. The parking permit was the same shape, the same size, and approximately the same fade pattern as the parking permit in the enhanced dashcam clip from August. The trooper, who had been part of the broader information distribution about the Marcotte case for the previous 8 months, made a mental note. He completed the traffic stop without arresting Colon Ortiz. He let the driver leave. He immediately called his supervisor. By the next morning, a surveillance team was on Angelo Colon Ortiz. The investigators did not arrest Colon Ortiz immediately. They first wanted forensic confirmation. The Vanessa Marcotte autopsy had recovered a small amount of biological material from beneath her fingernails, consistent with a struggle. Investigators had a male DNA profile from that material. They had been waiting 8 months for a comparison. A surveillance team followed Colon Ortiz for approximately a week. They observed him drinking a soda from a fast food restaurant, discarding the bottle, and continuing on his route. They recovered the bottle. They sent it to the Massachusetts State Police Forensic Laboratory for comparison against the male DNA profile from beneath Vanessa Marcotte's fingernails. The result came back on the 18th of April, 2017. The match was statistically conclusive. The DNA profile from the soda bottle and the DNA profile from beneath Vanessa Marcotte's fingernails were the same. 2 days later, on the 20th of April, 2017, Angelo Colon Ortiz was arrested in Worcester. He was charged with aggravated rape and aggravated assault and battery. The murder charge was added several months later as the case file was finalized. The arrest was approximately 8.5 months after the killing. The case was, at that moment, no longer cold. The case was, however, a long way from closed. The trial would take 5.5 more years. The cliffhanger that closes Part 2 is what the soda bottle, the parking permit, the dashcam clip, and the residential surveillance footage share. None of them had been deliberately created to solve the case. The dashcam was running for traffic, not crime. The surveillance camera was running for package theft, not homicide. The parking permit was a generic municipal sticker, not a clue. The soda bottle was litter, not evidence. Yet each of those objects, in turn, did the work that no human investigator could have done alone in the time available. The case was, in the end, solved by a chain of small, accidental, mostly mundane records. None of them were dramatic. All of them were essential. The Colon Ortiz trial was repeatedly delayed by pandemic-era court closures, defense motions, and, in the second half of 2021, a change in defense counsel. The trial finally began in late September of 2022 in Worcester County Superior Court before Judge Janet Kenton Walker. The state's case rested on 4 pillars. The first was the dashcam clip and the residential surveillance footage establishing the SUV's presence on Brooks Station Road on the afternoon of the 7th of August, 2016. The second was the parking permit identification, linking the surveillance footage to the vehicle Angelo Colon Ortiz drove. The third was the DNA from beneath Vanessa Marcotte's fingernails, matched to the soda bottle and subsequently to a court-ordered DNA sample taken after arrest. The fourth was a second source of DNA, recovered from Colin Ortiz's vehicle, which was consistent with Vanessa Marcotte's genetic profile. The defense argued that the DNA evidence was the result of contamination at the laboratory, and that the dashcam clip was too low in resolution to make a positive identification. The defense did not, however, produce an alternative explanation for the presence of biological material from Vanessa Marcotte in Colin Ortiz's vehicle. The jury deliberated for approximately 14 hours over 3 days. On the 7th of October, 2022, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, aggravated rape, and aggravated assault and battery. The sentence, handed down later that month, was life imprisonment without the possibility of parole on the murder count, with consecutive sentences on the rape and assault counts. Colon Ortiz was 37 years old at sentencing. He was transported to Sousa Baranowski Correctional Center in Lancaster, Massachusetts, where he remains. In the weeks after the verdict, the Worcester County District Attorney's Office released a small statement of acknowledgement to the residents of Princeton, the witnesses who had submitted dashcam footage, the homeowners whose surveillance cameras had captured the SUV, and the trooper who had recognized the parking permit. The statement, which was not formally a thank you, but which functioned as one, made clear that the case had been solved, in the practical sense, by ordinary citizens who had submitted ordinary records that had, in retrospect, become extraordinary. The 5-second dashcam clip is now part of the public trial record. It has been digitally archived and is held by the Massachusetts State Police as evidence. It will remain in evidentiary archive through the appellate process and beyond. It is, in the most literal sense, the object that solved the case. Christina Marcotte and her family established the Vanessa Marcotte Foundation in the fall of 2016, in the months immediately following the killing. The foundation works on women's personal safety, runs self-defense programs, and funds violence prevention research. The foundation has been continuously active since its founding. It will, by every indication, outlive the appellate process of the case it was founded in response to. The case of Vanessa Marcotte, in the practical sense, was solved within 9 months of her death. The dashcam clip was the early break. The parking permit identification was the bridge. The DNA was the closer. The arrest came in April of 2017. The 7 years in the title of this episode are the years of investigation, prosecution, delay, and trial. The arrest in April 2017 did not produce a conviction in 2017, or 2018, or 2019, or 2020, or 2021. The conviction came in October of 2022. The sentencing followed within weeks. The appellate process is now in progress and will continue for several more years. The 5-second clip was preserved by accident. The case was opened by accident. The match was made by accident. The arrest was made by attentive police work that built on those accidents. The conviction was made by a jury that watched the dashcam clip frame by frame and saw what the early investigators had seen back in August of 2016, when the case still felt unsolvable. The clip is the case. The case is the clip. The case of Vanessa Marcotte is the case that taught Massachusetts, and to some degree the country, that the small unloved cameras at the edges of suburban driveways and the cheap dash cams in the trunks of commuter cars are not just consumer-grade objects. They are, collectively, a forensic record of a particular kind of American afternoon. They were not deployed for that purpose. They have become that anyway. A generation watching this video live surrounded by those cameras. Ring doorbells, Nest cameras, Tesla cabin cams, Insta360 helmet cams, Garmin dash cams. The sheer volume of accidental recording of public space in 2026 is unlike anything that has ever existed before in human history. The square mile of Brooks Station Road in 2016 had, by available estimation, 3 to 5 operating cameras. The same square mile in 2026 has between 40 and 60. That is the trade. The trade is not a debate to be had. It is the present condition of being outside in suburban or rural America. Most people, most of the time, are recorded. The recording will mean nothing the vast majority of the time. It will mean nothing for the homeowner who installed the camera to catch the porch pirate. It will mean nothing for the commuter who installed the dashcam to fight an insurance claim. The recording will sit on a hard drive for 30 days and overwrite itself. A small percentage of the recording will, however, mean everything. It will be the 5 seconds of footage that proves a vehicle was on a particular road at a particular time. It will be the silhouette that, after enhancement, allows a height estimate. It will be the parking permit that, 10 miles away and 8 months later, draws the attention of an alert state trooper. The trade is that the recording does not save anyone. The trade is that the recording identifies what already happened. The trade is that the recording converts an unknowable mystery into a knowable case. Vanessa Marcotte did not get to be saved by the cameras on Brooks Station Road. The cameras did not protect her. She was, in the most painful sense, killed in the middle of the recording. The cameras did, however, do the second best thing the cameras can do. They produced the record by which the man who killed her was identified and convicted. They gave Christina Marcotte the answer. The Vanessa Marcotte Foundation continues to fund women's self-defense and personal safety education across Massachusetts and the wider New England region. The Foundation's annual summer race in Princeton, run on roads that include Brooks Station Road, has continued every year since 2017. The race is not a memorial in the sad sense. The race is, by the family's own framing, the affirmative thing. It is the act of running the road that Vanessa loved, surrounded by people who loved Vanessa. That is the closing payoff of this case. The runners on the road still being run. The road as a road still belonging to women who run. Vanessa Marcotte was 27 years old. She ran every street she lived on. She was loved. If you have a case you want covered on this channel, the email is in the description. The next episode of Last Known Frame drops on Friday. It is the case of a young woman who texted her mother at 11:47 on a summer night in 2011 in Macon, Georgia. By midnight, she was gone.